Hey, I've had the Yamaha Seqtrak for a few weeks now. I'm starting to get to learn it, getting to know the interface, getting to know what it can and can't do. There's obviously been a massive firmware update. If you're following the Seqtrak, you'll know that in the middle of last week, I think, they just dropped a version 2.0 of the firmware, which is a game changer. I'll get onto that. Really, it sort of makes the circuit tracks, which I thought previously was its closest competitor, it's streets ahead now. I'll talk about that. I also want to tell you about some of the little tricks that I've found, some of the things that I'm finding useful, some of the things that I've enjoyed playing with. Okay. So the first thing actually is a case. So the Seatrack is small and it's really portable. It's got a battery, it's got a little speaker, and it's the sort of thing that I want to throw into a backpack and go and play like in a cafe. If I'm going on a long train journey or a long plane journey, I am that sort of person who they're always trying to show you in the adverts, who'll get this thing out and sit there like a weirdo, wear massive headphones, sipping a flat white. But you can't really do that if you don't have a case for it because, look, it's pretty plasticky, and I don't know, it seems like the buttons and the knobs are going to ping off. So I looked for a case for it. They all seemed a bit overpriced to me, and then I realised it's the same dimensions pretty much as a keyboard, like as in the keyboard that you use for your computer. So I bought this. This is supposed to be a case for a keyboard. It was cheap, and it smells really chemically. I'm pretty sure I'm giving myself cancer as we speak. But it fits perfectly. So, yeah. Look at that. Nice and protected, surrounded by, what do you call it, Velcro. And it's got space in there for like headphones and some cables and stuff. So that's pretty nice. I'm pretty pleased with that. The other thing is, after this version 2.0 firmware update, the biggest thing in the firmware update was that there's another 7 synths, essentially. Previously, the way it worked is, put that there. You should be able to see that now. So previously, the way it worked was you had 2 synths, synth 1 and 2, and this DX, which is more like pianos and more acoustic sort of instruments. And then everything else was a drum track. So one track was dedicated to kick drums. You can change it if you wanted to, but basically you had one for each one of the different percussion elements. What they did with the firmware update is say, right, instead of that, that track there doesn't just have to be the kick anymore. If you would prefer, if you hold that down now, that's just if you want it to use as a kick. But that means you can now have a full drum kit just on that one track. You play the drum kit with these buttons here. So then that's the kick, that's the snare. And you can finger drum, or you can do whatever. Or this then makes it a synth. So a whole other fully featured synth track like synth 1 and 2 could go onto that channel and that and that and that. You've now got 9 synths. So there's a great video by Midlife Crisis Management where he checks to see if it really does work or if there's some limitation to it. And yeah, it just seems like you can just play 9 synth tracks in a row now, or simultaneously, I should say. So absolute game changer. So the thing I'm always comparing this to in my mind is Circuit Tracks. The Circuit Tracks is an amazing piece of kit. It's really tactile. It's very intuitive. The lights, the buttons are just where they need to be. I really enjoyed playing with it, but it's only got 2 synth tracks, which gets limiting pretty quickly. Now, the Seatrack, 9 synth tracks, it's too many. So I challenge anyone to show me a song that's got 8 or 9 synth tracks on it that doesn't sound like too messy. It's certainly enough for me, anyway. So it, in one sort of fell swoop, has completely overtaken the Circuit Tracks, in my opinion, and that is no longer in the equation. Now you're talking about, what is it better than, I don't know, something from Teenage Engineering? I don't know. I never played one because I'm not a rich arsehole. That's not fair. I'm not a hipster wanker. And the other great thing about it is that it shows that Yamaha are investing. Yamaha care about the Seatrack. Yamaha think there's a future in the Seatrack, or at least they've already invested money in the firmware. Is there going to be a second version of the hardware? Is there going to be another version 3.0 of the firmware? We don't know now. But, you know, it's certainly exciting to think about, isn't it? Right. I want to show you some things that it can do some features that are being used in that I think are pretty cool. One sec. All right, got the headphones on now. So first thing I wanted to mention was microtiming. Microtiming, obviously, if you don't hit it exactly on the beat, you want to go a little bit before, a little bit after. It's microtiming. It's good for bringing in some sort of feel. You can do it on here pretty easily. So I've got the kick drum here, and rather than just have a 4 to the floor or whatever, I've gone for this. So in order to give it a bit of a live sort of feel, first of all, this note here, I've made a bit quieter than the others. If you hold it down, you've got sound, pitch, pan, volume. So you just change that volume a bit, make it a bit softer. Then the velocity goes down, makes a bit of a softer kick. That note, and then if you move this one back and forth, look, the microtiming thing lights up. You can change it just a little bit, just to tweak it, so it's just got a bit of more of a natural feel. So I really like that microtiming. The other thing I think is cool is that you can take individual steps along here and then apply things like pan left and right. So just like I changed the volume of this step here, you can change the panning of an individual sequence on one of the drum tracks. So I did it for the hi-hat, so I added a bit of left and right panning. You can also add per step effects. So if you just want to have reverb on like one big snare drum hit in the on step 4 or something like that, step 5 I mean, you can do that. So that I think is pretty cool. Another thing is substeps. So if you look at the hi-hats here, for some of the hi-hats, I didn't want it to just hit once on the 16th note. I want it to have a double. And you can do that pretty easily. Again, you hold down the step, and then it's got these 5 options will light up. The first one is just a single hit. Then it's a double hit, a triplet for, I think it might be 6, either 5 or 6. Anyway, that's pretty cool. You can do all that trap stuff when you have like really fast hi-hats going. You can use it in slightly more creative ways as well, because I think that's getting a bit played out. What you can't do is say, oh, give me like 4 substeps to that step, but I only want to play numbers 1, 2, and 4. You could do that on the circuit tracks, but you can't do it on here, as far as I know. The other thing to mention is you can record movement. So you can record as the sequence is playing back, you can change an effect. You can change the volume as you go, and it'll record that as part of the sequence then. So if you listen to this synth here, I've added some sort of movement with the panning into the actual sequence itself. Pretty nice. I can do the same thing then for, I've added another synth part here in perk 1, which is kind of like I think it could be a nice sort of swell. So if we would play that back and then we mess with the volume as it's recording, what you need to do as it's playing, you hit the record button and then make the change you want. And you'll hear it when we play back. Cool. One other thing that changed with the firmware that got rid of a slightly annoying niggle for me is that if you want to change the octave of, let's say, the DX, what you had to do before was to hit the octave button, which is around the top here. See where the lights are. You would move it up and then round. So it's just going round and round. You can't say, oh, just move it down 1 octave. No, you have to move it up, whatever, 6, 7 octaves. That's a pain. Now instead, what you can do is you hit octave and you turn all up and down. That's a bit nicer, but it's not. I mean, the game changer is absolutely those extra synths and those extra drum tracks. Sweet as you like. One thing that I've started getting into using the patterns, what you do here, you've got a pattern for the kicks and you switch between patterns, right? So one thing that I think is quite neat is if you've got a kind of a regular sort of kick drum pattern, you then add one that you can call up that's just triggering every note. And that's a nice way to have some build up when you're trying to change between different sequences. Obviously, you're doing the same sort of thing that I always do with the circuit tracks, where you've got A and B parts on the different synths, and you're changing those from one thing to another. So you'll do something like this. One thing I really don't like, and I don't understand why anyone would want to do it, if you change the pattern on all, it's going to change everything from 1 to 2 to 3. I think you've got to be pretty organized to know and line up all of your kicks, all of your hi-hats, all of your synths, so that 1 is always like the verse and 2 is the chorus, which is what I presume it's for. That's not really how I work, and I know I'm going to find it confusing and annoying. Similarly with sound, so if you're in the middle of playing something and you accidentally, or deliberately I suppose, change the sound, it's going to mess the whole thing up. You can easily go from one category to another, for example. So 1 minute you're playing like a synthy bass line, then you turn it and suddenly now it's a piano. I mean, I don't want that in my life, and it's a pain. I don't have any more complaints, and I'm loving it. But I will say, if you have to change the sound, you hold down the sound button, and these knobs now are for the different categories. But which category is which? Like, which one is supposed to be special effects, and which one is bass, and which one's a lead synth? You don't know. I've seen people start putting stickers on the device, which to me means there's something not quite right there. I don't want to have the app open all the time. I don't want to have the manual open all the time, but there's no way I can really remember 10 different category numbers. Is a little thing. The other slight bugbear, I guess, is that the high-pass filter, which is a great thing to have on there, but it's just really aggressive. It's way too aggressive. So it filters away to nothing. But, the repeater is awesome. I use it all the time. Yeah, it's an amazing device. I hope you're having as much fun with yours, if you've got one, as I am.